This is what addiction looks like. So many people are walking around in plain sight. Their life is on the floor. They create this duality of life in the dark and the projected life in the light. We're talking about porn, we're talking about pornography. Introduced to explicit adult material at 9 years old, it became the thread for my entire life for 30 years. This world only gets worse until we intervene.
Ore, thank you so much for coming on today.
I am stoked.
When I saw you recently at the What's on Stage Awards.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful that you knew that you were coming on, because I meet certain people and they're like, I saw them a few days ago and then they're suddenly on the podcast and I'm like, oh, I'm like, oh great. So like people just don't know or don't realize, So
Matt, this has been a long time in the making, because your team got in touch with me last summer.
Yeah.
When I first started talking about addiction.
Yeah.
And at that point, there were just a series of dominoes that were sort of rallying in my life that led me to the point of actually deciding I was going to start speaking about my addiction. And that was one of the early stages. I was kind of gauging to see what the response would be like.
Yeah.
And I remember speaking about saying I had lived for my whole life with this addiction, and just reams of support, just messages of support saying, you're not the only one, you're not alone, incredible vulnerability, thank you for speaking out. And I was like, that's weird, because I haven't said what it is.
Yeah,
but a lot of people are really supportive. I had thought for 30 years that it would be the opposite. So it was one of the kind of early signs that it might actually create a positive response. But your team got in touch. And the reason I snubbed you, I snubbed the team because there was so much that I had to do to get to the point of feeling like I was ready to speak about what had been my entire life, a thread for 30 years through my entire life.
Yeah.
But I guess I always had this difficult relationship with being in the public eye. But I had no relationship with being an addict in the public eye. So coming on what I think, you and your team, you have created an incredible space. It really is like the leading space in addiction. You are an incredible voice and you're an incredible advocate, and people feel safe coming to you, and everything that comes out of your podcast is so resonant. I was like, I don't know where I fit in that yet. I just need to find the place that I can blurt it out. And then the intention is, after doing that interview, and I eventually did it with Paul Brunson on their Need to Talk podcast, I was going to do one or two, and then I was going to hide in a bunker for 6 months, never to be seen, and then hope that the conversation around adult explicit imagery and content would change. And here we are kind of approaching 9 months later, and I am still gratefully talking about it, because the problem is so great. It's so uncovered and undiscussed, but the harm is ripping through us societally.
Yeah.
And I realized I picked up a baton, and I was like, I think I need to run with this, because it doesn't stop until we really get to the root of the problem.
So, or if people that aren't aware of what you've been very bravely vocal about recently, what is your story that you're talking about at the moment?
Well, kind of by default and not design, I guess I've become a bit of a voice on the harms of the world of pornography and adult explicit material. Last November, I publicly spoke for the first time about having had an addiction to pornography for 30 years, having been introduced to it at the age of 9. It was the most terrifying chapter of my life. And I had already by that point been through a lot.
Yeah.
From 2 immediate family bereavements, divorce. But for me, speaking up about this was worth putting my career on the line for.
And I suppose did you feel like that? Did you feel like this could be a mistake?
Oh God, this could have been the end. We had to have those conversations as a team about this potentially being the end of my career as it stood. But do you know what? The more I spoke about it with friends, the more I spoke about it with employers, the more I spoke about it with charities and people doing the work on the ground, with young people, like, it was so obvious to me. The message was abundantly clear. And I thought, if anybody doesn't get on the side of this, I mean, pray for them, because this is something that affects absolutely everybody connected to a device, but especially young people coming through. And I recognized at a time that I was kind of prepared to speak to my children about something that I had gone through. But when I came to understanding, and there was a number of things that happened last year, from the online safety bill passing and VPN rate spiking, to the Children's Commission publishing a report saying that kids as young as 6 are being exposed to pornography. And then it was yesterday's fish and chip paper the next day. I thought, I don't think people are taking this issue seriously enough.
Yeah.
And that adult material is filling the void that our lack of communication is creating around what good, healthy sex looks like. And instead fueling a lot of the negative, horrific things and issues that we're seeing in society: sexual crime, massive division between genders, volatility online, hatred and vitriol, and so much of it fueled by sex and pornography. And I thought, I think it's all connected. And I think if I can add a voice to it, or if I can create a change in conversation around it, then everybody who is invested in it, from families to schools to like places of power and change, then it might start to move the needle even just a little bit. And the reaction, the response immediately was seismic. It was mind-blowing. And I never thought I would be here today feeling able to talk about this as the 9-year-old that I was. But from that point, I didn't think that I would be here still talking about it and people wanting to listen. I think that was the thing that has really surprised me. And I feel like I've picked up a baton, and I have seen such a collective response, the collective will. Because I think what you do when you uncover something like this is that people understood that there was an issue. And I found that in every conversation that I was having. Like, man, to the friend in the gym who told me that he had an addiction for the first time, and thinking, gosh, if we can do this to other people in this gym, to talking to schools and the issues that they were having. I was like, everybody's standing shoulder to shoulder wanting to make a change, but we just don't know how. We just don't know how to influence something that seems so like a tsunami of material and the way that young people are existing in through this world. So I was like, if it makes even a little bit of difference to one person, then it will have been worth it. And here we are, still talking about it.
When you're so young and you're consuming this content, right, what's going on in your life at the time? Like, where are you kind of like, what's going on in your life?
It looked good from the outside.
Yeah.
I think of myself as a kid that was a really good kid. And I had to be, because if I wasn't, then you'd be punished.
Right.
I've said this before, that, growing up in a Nigerian family, it's not abnormal that you have to achieve.
Right.
You have to achieve educationally. You have to, the legacy of the family and the reputation of the family is key. My dad was an incredible, well-reputable lawyer in Nigeria. We're going to a private school, of incredible schools. And so you had to achieve.
Yeah.
Because especially as I came to know, there was a point where one of my siblings got suspended from school for smoking. And I remember my dad coming back. And listen, here's the thing, I love my dad. He did so much for us. But the reality was that we were terrified of him.
Yeah.
And I remember him coming home and finding out about this. And he did the thing where it wasn't an immediate eruption. It was kind of held until we got back to Nigeria, which was, his domain. And we basically told in no uncertain terms that if this was to ever happen again, we'd be removed from school in the UK. We'd never see our friends again. And we would be educated in Nigeria under his rules, under his roof. So the life that we knew would be over.
Completely over. Yeah.
At 10. That's when I discovered that.
Oh my God.
So when you know that that's what's at stake, but you find yourself in a world like this, no one is allowed to find out.
Yeah. I mean, I can just think of the amount of shame that must put onto you.
Yeah.
You know, there must be such a kind of secretive, kind of shameful side to what you're doing as well.
It's so secretive. Yeah, I think porn is the last taboo. I think so much of the world has moved forward that we do discuss. We talk about people's problems. It's so hard. It's hard for people to talk about their own problems, but I think we're getting much better at it. I think this is the last big one. I
think you're absolutely right. I can't think of another one that's like that's more of a taboo to talk about.
Totally.
Yeah, it makes people uncomfortable.
It makes people uncomfortable.
The thought of people watching this, they might even see whatever title we put on this video. If you put the word pornography on that, people will be like, oh, don't make them uncomfortable.
Which is why we need to go adult explicit material.
Adult explicit material, exactly.
But no, I think because, you know, sex is such a vulnerable thing. Societally, even good sex isn't talked about.
Yeah.
How often do you talk about sex in your house?
We've talked about porn quite a few times.
You have?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, because we did this documentary, me and my wife Swiped, where we talked about phone use and kids, and we've got kids, so we talked quite openly about porn. We had a big discussion about it.
What was their reaction?
They were gobsmacked that we were talking about this. I mean, I don't want to go into too many details, but they were kind of quite shocked that we were openly talking about it. But then, you know, they were really open with us about what they've seen and what they hadn't seen, and how they felt about it, and what kind of like, and what was being talked about at school. And I really wanted to kind of make them know that it's no judgment here. You know, we're learning this as much as you are.
Yeah.
You know, so what's going on in school? What's being talked about? What's being shared? What's being, you know, it was quite an amazing conversation.
That's huge, man. Yeah. That's the remedy. That's the medicine.
Yeah.
Because it's talking early and it's talking often. Because you're right, we are still figuring it out, but so are they.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they don't know that they can come to us with these things, like even if that was the only conversation you had, you open that line of communication. Because in lieu of that, without that communication, it creates a distance and a void between the parents and the kids, and what's going to fill that void are the things that they're influenced by in their world, their friends, or what they see on their devices. And so often, it's pornography.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to sex. This is what is filling the void. And it's so plentiful, so accessible, that if they see it often enough and there's no kind of, well, that's actually not what it looks like in real life. That's not a healthy way. And actually, you know, go for age appropriately, but getting to the point of going, this too far down the track creates a really big harm. It'll create harm to you. It'll create harm to your relationships, to the people that you love. And what I would like to do is create a space where you know that you can talk about this stuff, and we will help you understand what good sexual relationships look like.
Yeah,
we have to. There's no other remedy for it.
I mean, that's a really uncomfortable chat for parents, I think, to have with their
Oh
children.
my gosh, yeah. That's why we haven't had it.
Yeah, that's why we haven't had it. Yeah, exactly. So uncomfortable. I can imagine my mum talking to me about that when I was a kid. I would have been like out of the room.
Big time.
You know, like,
Let me tell you about that. I was thinking about this because I've never spoken about this, but I was like, if this isn't the space to talk about shame, then where is it? And so we were selling the family house that we'd lived in for 37 years, a couple of years ago. And my mum she was doing it basically on her own. And I remember going down to the house for my last goodbye and just asked her if there was anything I could do before I had to head back home. And it hit me while I was there. I went, I've not lived in this house for maybe 15 or 20 years, but my stash is still under the bed.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
Still hidden away in the kind of deceptive shoebox, shrouded by sports equipment, so it would look completely innocuous, was still there under a drawer, and this house is getting sold.
Yeah.
And I thought, I can't leave this here.
Yeah.
And not least if the new people arrive and open a drawer and there's a stash underneath the bed and they're thinking all of these thoughts with who was living here beforehand. And by the way, I've been to that house since, they know who I am.
Yeah,
so they would have put one and two together. But if my the thing that really stopped me And I hadn't gone through the transformation and the work and the discussion and the revelations I've had since. But I thought at the time, if my mum finds this, I'm a 37-year-old man with 2 dependent children. I will never be able to live with the shame. So I remember having to hurry, thinking, what am I going to do? And I remember, like, he's going to kill me because I have to mention him. My best mate, my son's godfather, I was seeing him at the pub that afternoon. So I got the stash, and I remember telling him he had a van. And I said, mate, can you take this, please? He said, oh, yeah, sure. What is it? I was like, it's my stash. You need to destroy it. You need to get rid of it. I can't do it. Because the shame. He was like, mate, just put it in the bin. I can't put it in the bin. Imagine if somebody sees me putting this in the bin and goes, like, it was even as a fully grown adult who was, this is 20 years before, that shame was still with me. That I had to, I mean, the story is funny enough, but the experience is real.
Absolutely.
That's what people are doing every day. And then I thought, what are people's stash now? It ain't in a shoebox under the bed.
No.
It is on encrypted files. It's on WhatsApp. It's on Telegram. It is on these sort of dark websites. It's been shared between mates. And the volume of the material that they're seeing at a really early age wasn't what we might have seen as young people. It's a completely different, terrifying, violent world. And and that's the reality of what's happening right now.
I've never really thought about that. I mean, the thing is that I thought because when I was a kid, it was really hard to get hold of porn.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, it was like, there was a couple of things that I remember when I was really young, I found some in a bush.
Right.
Me and my mates found some in a bush on our bikes, and we'd all just go there, and then we'd look at it, and then we'd stash it back in the bush. We call it bush porn. And like there's like
wow,
this thing. And like then like one guy in your class would have a VHS, and it would get passed around everybody. But now it's like it's so available at all times. So any kid anywhere who has a phone in his pocket at all times, right? And the thing is, I remember doing this documentary about phones, and they said most things that are bad happen when your child is alone with their phone at night. Right? So if you can do one good thing as a parent, like I think for people listening to this, one piece of advice that we give you is make them charge their phone outside their room, because it's not like they're hiding away and trying to be sneaky about it. But that's just when temptation comes, when other things happen. They get sent a message late at night, they open that, it all kind of goes wrong. So charging your phone outside the room was a big step towards the right direction.
It's absolutely 100%. 100%.
I mean, how did the addiction manifest as you got older? So you've kind of been exposed to this when you're a kid, and how does this kind of manifest as you age?
Well, I remember being about 15, and my sister left the house to go to university, and then she was a grown adult living her own life. Her bedroom had been the one downstairs. It was the only bedroom downstairs. And by this point, I was fully addicted to gaming. There was broadband in the room 2 doors along the hallway, and pornography. So by mid-teens, I'd be up until the early hours, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, playing games and downloading explicit adult material on the internet. That was a nightly activity.
I mean, the thing is that's how old were you then? 15?
14, 15, and then beyond.
And like, so not only is that affecting so many things, but the thing about mental health, it's just lack of sleep alone, because you got to go for school the next day, feeling full of shame, lack of sleep. All that kind of stuff.
I guess the other thing that's kind of sinister about it is I didn't know that was a problem.
Really?
I didn't know that I was in the thick of something that had already gripped me. That's something that I had been reverting to as a kind of friend, as some kind of like where I went for trauma, where I went to feel, where I went if, there'd been bad news, good news, if I was angry, if I was feeling lonely, if I was feeling depressed. I didn't know that this was my kind of
that's addiction.
My go-to.
That's
is
exactly
addiction.
Yeah.
And what's also really quite sinister, because I think there is a reciprocity. There's something reciprocal about addiction where whether you reach for the bottle or you reach for the drug, it's always kind of the friend that's kind of there.
One conversation really can spark change. Share this conversation with someone you know. It could be just what they need to hear. One thing I've learned, and definitely learned it the hard way, is that you don't go through tough times on your own. At some point, you need support. You need people. You need somewhere to turn. And for a lot of people, that support comes from charities and organizations that are set up and ready when you need them. The kind of places that help you take the first steps, even when you don't know where to start. And those places exist because they're supported. Postcode lottery players have raised over £1.7 billion for charities and good causes, supporting everything from youth programs and mental health services to wider health and community projects. It's millions of people doing a little together and creating something that really matters. If you want to learn more, just click the link in the description and discover the impact Postcode Lottery is making through their Powering Hope Together initiative. Postcode Lottery manages lotteries for 20 charities. A minimum of 30% of each ticket price goes to charity. 18 plus, conditions apply, not available in Northern Ireland. This is a paid advertisement with BetterHelp. One thing that keeps coming up on The Mend is how many of us don't know how to talk about what we're feeling, especially us men. We think we just need to handle it, keep moving, not make a fuss. And that's exactly what we're focusing on the next few months with BetterHelp through our Say It Louder initiative. Because this isn't just about telling men to open up. It's about understanding why it's so hard in the first place and what actually happens when we don't. We're going to be exploring how anxiety, burnout, and depression don't just appear overnight. They build quietly from the small things we ignore every day. The pressure, thoughts, the stuff we never say out loud. From chatting to loads of guests on The Mend, I've noticed that anxiety, burnout, and depression, they don't just show up overnight, do they? It's not like you wake up and suddenly you're there. They're proper sneaky. They build up quietly. For me, it's often the pressure I put on myself, the thoughts that won't shut up, and all the heavy stuff that I just never say out loud. And look, 60% of UK men who sign up for BetterHelp cite anxiety as a reason for starting therapy, according to internal BetterHelp data. And that was definitely true for me. I didn't always have the words for what I was feeling, so I just pushed through it. But that only works for so long. Therapy gave me a space to actually understand what was going on underneath. No judgment, no pressure, just honesty. And that's why I'm so pleased we're doing this. Not just once, but across the next few months. If you want to start that process yourself, you can sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/onthemend. That's betterhelp.com/onthemend.
This material has become so reciprocal, whether it's algorithms, whether it is kind of AI today, where you can literally create whatever it is that you want without the friction of a real person offering their own kind of retort, their own values, their own humanity.
Right.
And that holds you. There's a retention. There's a kind of like, I think so much of the model of today is about audience retention. Mm-hmm. But I think this is based on addiction. It's like we need to keep you here.
Yeah.
And I think when you're so shamed, and you're so isolated, and you're like, I can't talk to this even with my closest friends, let alone siblings or family. This is the only place I can go. When they understand that you are alone, it preys on that shame and loneliness.
Yeah.
There's almost like a discourse. Like, we know how shameful and we know how disgusting you are. This is where you need to be. It's quite cult-like. And I remember feeling that even as a teenager and thinking, well, I mean, I don't think I've got a problem, but I know that this is where I feel safe.
Yeah.
Almost. Like this is where I come back to when I'm feeling however it is that I might be feeling as a teenager with hormones, with girls, might feeling rejected from girls, but I can always come back to this. It's always there. Whenever I need it, whenever I need to feel something, or maybe I'm going around in the day and I see something that's a trigger. I can go straight back to that material and I can recreate it.
This is the exact experience drug addicts have.
Yeah.
Like the exact same experience.
Yeah.
So I think some people can disassociate these two things. They can just think about addiction and they can think about porn, maybe not put this in the same bracket. But what you're explaining is exactly is moment for moment addiction. Like that is exactly what it is. And then the shame makes you want to use more. So kind of like builds that perpetual cycle of shit.
Yes.
It's like that's exactly what I'm hearing.
Yeah. And when I first spoke about this to my therapist because it was just tearing my life apart. And it kind of got to the point of just complete despair and nonchalance almost. Like it was always going to be, it got to the point finally where it was going to be easier to get better than live through it.
Yeah.
I remember telling my therapist this for the first time I'd spoken to anyone, admitting I have an addiction. And she was great. I mean, she said, but that's okay. You're not alone. In fact, it's a real problem and more people are doing and feeling the same way than you would think. And for me, that was the beginning. That was the first conversation I had that started me on a path to recovery. She later sent me a journal, like a therapist's journal that was set in the mid-noughties. So not even in today's smartphone era, some like maybe late noughties. And it was a journal that was talking about like a huge rise in addiction to this kind of material. And the thing that really stuck with me at the end, because I mean, they described everything that I knew and that kind of exposure to this kind of material and how things had changed from analog and us looking at magazines in the bush to Blockbuster Video to the onset of broadband to then digital and then smartphones, and how that was going to change all of our behaviors because this undercurrent lived underneath. Societally, it was acceptable here, and then where this lived was under, but was fully accessible, and that was going to change all of our behavior. And I remember the line that stuck with me was, this might not be a problem for everyone, because everybody has their own spectrum, their own connectivity to this, and this really is an issue for everybody connected to a device. They said this might not be a problem for everybody, but it could be a problem for anybody. The amount of access that is available to anybody at any one time to create that kind of reaction that is a drug.
Yep.
It is creating the same neurological change in you that drugs do. That level of exposure could be a problem for absolutely anybody. And I think when you understand that, and look at how children are consuming it.
Yeah.
How kids as young as 6 are accessing this kind of material. The kids between 11 and 13 have all seen, there's an average age of kids coming across pornography, that 80% of it come across social media. That's when you understand that this is a public health crisis.
Yeah.
This is, everybody can admit that no children should be exposed to pornography at any age.
Yeah.
But when there is a majority of children that are accessing it and seeing it well before they're of any legal age, well before they've had any conversation about sex, that years before they have their first sexual educational class or discussion in family, they've already had years of exposure to this stuff online.
Oh my God, yeah.
That's a crisis because it's fundamental to how we exist in society. And if they're using this as their model, as an education for what sex looks like in their lives. Fast forward 10 years and it gets to the worst that we're seeing in society today, but at an even more accelerated rate.
You're right. It's like, I remember when I watched Grease, and then, was it Grease or Grease 2? And they were putting the condom on the banana.
Right.
And they were all kind of just shagging everywhere anyway. So I was like, how ridiculous that they're doing this sex ed class when they're so old. You know, it's the same thing. It's like you've been exposed to all of this and then you're going to try and teach kids about sexual education.
But it hasn't changed. My godson's 17.
Yeah.
I was talking to him just this weekend about it. And he was like, maybe one class a term or a year. It's, I mean, you got to feel for teachers because they've been delegated this responsibility, and most of the people in their class have not had a conversation with another adult other than them.
Yeah.
And there might be like an element of it to the syllabus, but this hasn't been taught. This has been inherited.
Yeah.
And, you know, kids have already seen loads of it. They're already talking about it. There's an awkwardness, a sniggering in the classroom. The attention just isn't there. Because, by the way, after this class is finished, they're all going to be sharing it between them anyway. They've already got their own subculture for what they think towards sex. It's completely obsolete. It's completely outdated. And I think there needs to be a real structural, educational change that really addresses an early look at how we talk about good, healthy sex for children and young people, because people are getting more access earlier and earlier anyway. So we have to change the goalposts. And I think if we don't look at how kids are consuming from a really early age and talking about what good, fundamentally to society, good sex and relationships look like, then we can't be surprised that by the time they get to pre-adolescence and into adolescence, they've already formed their own idea of what it looks like in their heads. And it becomes harder to intervene.
I mean, we can get told whatever whatever people want to tell us, but if we're already forming these patterns and already forming these associations in our heads before we get told something by an adult, then it's already in us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We've already made those decisions.
Yeah.
You know? Like it's really quite shocking when you think of it about, like, because I remember when my kids went to secondary school, we had to give them a mobile phone when they were in year 7.
Right.
We got told by the school they have to have a mobile phone. And my wife was always really funny about that. She was like, I don't want them to have a mobile phone. I was like, they can't be the only kid that does it. And the school said they have to.
Wow.
And which was a really big thing. But that's quite very common for most secondary schools for the child to have a smartphone. You know, I mean, which is quite shocking.
How long ago was that in year 7?
That was when, I mean, my daughter was 16. So it was 5 years ago.
And so much has changed in that time. Yeah. And I'm glad that there's, I'm an official champion of smartphone-free childhood. Yeah. There is obviously, the discussion about when's, reducing the age of social media access for kids and when's the right time to give kids a smartphone. I think the discussion is changing right now.
Yeah.
And thankfully, schools are participating in that conversation because they're the ones that are seeing these kids and the changes to them for 8 to 10 hours a day, And gratefully, I mean, the idea of a school saying you have to give a kid a smartphone is absolutely terrifying. But it's thankfully, in most cases, it isn't a conversation at the moment. But it is all connected because, again, I don't think there has been a template to how we help kids navigate the digital world. It is going to be the primary way that they engage with the world. It already is for so many people. But we haven't got that template. And for me, my vision is there was a time when you would never as a family or as a young person gone into a pub.
Yeah.
But we've got to the point societally where it's a place that you can go. There's a familial setting to it. There's a safety to it.
Yeah.
Yes, people go there and they might get drunk and there are, people struggling with alcoholism there. But there is a way to create generationally a conversation where somewhere like that can be safe. How can we create a counter to the stuff that does exist? Digital life and exposure to adult material is going to exist, but how can we create a template for young people from a really early age through early childhood into pre-adolescent, into teenage years and into early adulthood, so that by the time they get to 18, we've given them the best possible education so that they are ready to take on that world. Yeah. And they're in a much better position to make better choices. I think that really is fundamental from an educational point of view, in society, familiarly, in our friendships, because things like that website, the date rape website, things like Grok AI, things that we have to be more outraged that it exists. But I think that is the cost. That is the result. Because without it, over the course of 15 years of smartphone access in our hands, that's what's happening now.
Yeah.
So, that it's so much has changed and will change with AI and everything to come, that if we don't create that template now and really look at what regulation looks like, really look at what transparency looks like from all of these websites and really fundamentally putting in massive legislation, that we all have a part to play. There's real collective responsibility in solving that problem at the root, because the bad stuff is already there. How do we help our kids navigate around it?
Yeah, I mean, can I say thank you so much for talking about it, because it takes a lot of courage to bring these things up and kind of open yourself up in such a public sphere, right? And I did the same thing when I did a documentary about addiction, and I released it and went on holiday to Thailand for 3 weeks, and I just didn't look at my phone. We just had the documentary out, and I just went away because I didn't know I didn't want to see. I didn't know what the reaction would be. I didn't know what that kind of and I didn't know how I would deal with that in a way, because I had a bit of a public fall from grace anyway, so people knew that I was addicts, and they knew I was kind of in recovery, but I never talked about it to an extent. So it was a very weird process.
Yeah.
Of kind of coming to terms with that.
And can I just say as well, because you personally did come into our discussions around whether it was right for me to talk about it. And like I said, it was very public, and you had gone public about it, and been such an inspirational force for bringing addiction out of the cover of shame. And I remember using you as an example and saying, well, Matt has done this incredible job of sort of releasing the shame from drug addiction, drink, and has created a voice for it. But the retort was often, yeah, but Matt's a rock star. He's a pop star. There's kind of this accepted, thanks to a lot of work from people like yourself, accepted societal blanket that people who've been through drug and drink addiction, we kind of know what to do with it.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more of a societal acceptance. Like, I mean, gosh, take this back decades and it wouldn't be the case. But thankfully, because of a lot of that work, because it's been in the public sphere, there is a little bit more of a template for what people do. It's still incredibly hard to get out of it. But I was like, the issue is like, but this is what addiction looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is like me, like so many people are walking around in plain sight. Absolutely. In their life is on the floor. They've already hit their rock bottom. Yeah. But they don't think that they supposed to be stand-up members of society, have an image in my world, like a public profile. And addiction that's not you. I was on Good Morning Britain the other day, and lovely, gorgeous Kate Garraway was saying, she was like, I've known you for such a long time, and I would never have thought that you would have been someone that would have got into addiction like this. Yeah. And I was like, that's the reason why I had to say something.
Absolutely.
Because this is what addiction looks like. And it occurs in plain sight. You create this duality of life in the dark and the projected life in the light. Yeah. And of course, the only one that you know is going to be acceptable is the one that you are projecting, the one that you know is acceptable, the one that your family have known forever, the one that your new friends are engaging with, the ones that the public are aware of and are happy to accept. But the one that's been crying and on the floor and has been devastated for decades will never come out and see the light.
Absolutely.
And that is so many people. And in this world, I'm aware that we've not talked about it. We're talking about porn, we're talking about pornography. There's a part of me that doesn't want to say the word so much because on social media, they censor this stuff and this message needs to be brought out. And I've started referring to it as explicit adult imagery material so that it reaches all the ears that it needs to, because
I didn't think about that, but there's
a real censorship, which is important, but I think it kind of creates that limit again of this world that is so shameful that goes further underground. And then over time, this dark web, but it's not really dark web because it's all still mainstream.
Absolutely,
exists in this void of communication and understanding. And so people find it, they migrate towards it, but they can't share it, can't talk about it. It becomes really isolating. Kids are engaging with it, sharing it. And yeah, so the more we talk about it, the more we talk about what healthy sexual relationships and relationships with sex look like, the more we can discuss how bad sexual relationships look like. And I think we have to bring that into the sphere. So that's the discussion. It's a long road.
It's a really long road, mate. And I thank you for taking on this road, because it does feel like you picked up a bit of a baton. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like you've kind of picked up the torch for this?
Yeah. Before I decided to say something, the reason why it was so scary was because nobody had done it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And when you think about the sheer volume of people that are consuming this kind of material, like societally, I wanted to say something because I was worried about our kids and the world that they were going to inherit. But I think we don't solve that until we agree and appreciate that societally we've got an issue.
Yeah.
When 4 billion visits are hitting Pornhub in a month,
Wait. 4 billion.
4 billion globally. And Pornhub is one of the top 5 websites behind Instagram and Wikipedia. This is mainstream and a global consumption.
We all need a bit of support now and then to feel our best. Take trying to eat healthy, right? You might aim to eat all the right foods for the benefits, but you'll probably still have some gaps in your nutrition. That's where AG1 can help. I drink 1 scoop with cold water every morning. I'm getting essential vitamins, minerals, live cultures, and whole food source nutrients. And it tastes really, really good, I promise. It's not a meal replacement or a magic fix, but supports what you're already doing. After drinking it consistently, I feel way more energized. My focus is better and so is my digestion, which makes a big difference day to day. I know I can really trust this stuff as it's consistently updated with the latest science and it's trusted by health experts worldwide. Head to drinkag1.com/onthemend and pay £59 instead of £79 for your first month, plus a free welcome kit, vitamin D3 and K2, and 5 travel packs. And if it's not for you, they'll refund your first order in full within 30 days.
The other way I compare it is, adult content creation is obviously such a huge thing, whether it's OnlyFans or subscriber websites, cam websites. And it's kind of an understood metric that some of the most popular adult content creators can earn up to hundreds of thousands of pounds a month.
Right.
And that's kind of accepted. Who's paying for that? That is a huge amount of money.
Huge amount of money,
Huge. Yeah. And whilst everybody has the right to earn and everyone has that, but if we think about what's going on underneath that, like the voluntary passing over of that amount of money to a single person, think about how huge that industry is. And a lot of those creators have profiles on TikTok and WhatsApp and X and Instagram and Facebook, and they'll speak openly about it being an entry level to get them to get the subscribers, to the users, to the websites, to the adult websites. These same websites, these same apps are visited by children.
Yeah.
2 or 3 clicks away and you're onto something that kids shouldn't be looking at. So it drips down from us grown-ups really understanding that there is a consequence of a lot of this in our own behavior. When I look at this content, and I guess this was me for 30 years, when I decided to speak about it, I talked about having had an addiction to it since the age of 9, or being introduced to explicit adult material at 9 years old. It became the thread for my entire life for 30 years. I know what happens. I know what happens when you are repeatedly exposed to this kind of material, what it does to your sexual script. How, as a child, that is your first mapping of what sex looks like. And the way that I saw it change over decades to the violent, to the sexual objectification of women. It's no surprise when I see kind of the division, the volatility that exists on social media, and some of the really difficult things that we societally have to come to grips with, and ends up, I think of what is the cost of addiction to this kind of material. And I think, you probably often ask the same question when it comes to addiction to drink and drugs, and it is depleted mental health. It is cost of relationships. It is cost and finances. It does often can come to end of life, whether it is suicide or, effects physically on your body. I think in this world, the extent of it, the cost of it leads to sexual crime. Because I think that kind of material being so disassociative of the women and the girls in your life, you look at it, you're not thinking about the important people that you love in your life when you're watching it. Especially over time. The devaluation of the women and girls in your life, that void that it creates allows that kind of underworld, and it feeds off of that. It becomes a neurological change. I remember Jamila Jamil talking about the manosphere or toxic masculinity, and obviously these are big buzzwords right now. And she was like, we have to pity these people. Sexual crime needs to feel the full face of the law. But something has happened. There has been a break along the way. And I think when it comes to this kind of material, it's like rocket fuel.
I've never thought about that. Like, I've never put those two together. Like I've been a little bit kind of not obsessed. I've been really looking into the manosphere like for a little while now. And I've never thought to put the consumption of porn from an early age to the way that these guys treat women. I've never put those two together, which is so obvious. And like you saying it out loud has just made light bulbs go off in my head.
I think the problem is if you don't understand the normalization of this kind of content, for the people who are really struggling, it prevents them being able to find the help.
Yeah.
Because it means that there's not really a big deal. People often ask, what's the big deal about it? Everybody looks at porn.
Yeah.
So if we accept that young boys are looking at porn, young girls are looking at porn, and that they're using this as the model, and it's affecting their relationships, and they're having erectile dysfunction, and they're disassociating from their lives and not wanting to speak to their friends, and they're feeling more isolated, and they're feeling depressed. They can't get out of that because we don't understand that it's a real issue.
Yeah.
But then societally, if we don't accept that there is a complete normalization of this, it means that whole undercurrent is allowed to exist.
Yeah.
Because if we don't understand that there are harms that come with consuming something that is essentially a drug, there is a fantasy element to it, but you're using it in a sexual way.
Yeah.
If you do that over time, there's research that will tell us that kind of overexposure to that kind of content, is the same neurological change as if you give someone a Class A drug. Like it's creating a different synaptic pathway in your mind. And if that is how you are repeatedly looking at what sex looks like, your fantasy and your reality become blurred.
Yeah.
And so what I saw a huge intervention necessary is because if a tranche of young people, a generation of young people are going through their lives and this is their first exposure to sex.
Yeah.
And they're understanding that this kind of violent activity is what sex looks like, that's what's normal, consensual, and acceptable. Then fast forward 10 years, we can't be surprised with the amount of damage that's going to cost us societally. But we're already seeing it right now.
We're seeing it right now.
We're seeing it right now. There was this website that the CNN investigation, did you hear about it? That was last week. Oh my gosh, Matt. I don't even want to mention the website because it's all of it is, it's so desperate. And I've had so many messages from people over the weekend saying, we're shocked, but we're not surprised. We can't be surprised because women have been dealing with this for so long. There is a website, the CNN investigation talked about, there is a website, 20,000 videos of men date raping their wives and creating content.
Oh my God, I did hear about this.
It's called sleep content.
Fucking hell.
Mate, I was in floods, but what are my tears for? We have to do something about it. We have to recognize that this is now.
Yeah.
It's not even, in due course in time, yes, we need to look ahead for our children, but this stuff exists right now. And I think there is a really disconnected association with what pornography. Yeah. And this world is so wide. I think even the idea of what porn looks like, I think in so many people's minds is it's that magazine on the top shelf, or it's that DVD in that aisle in Blockbuster that you can't walk down. There was at least some level of kind of disconnect. You had to go out of your way to get it. Yeah. This is, you can be doing the big shop or doing your meeting on Zoom and people are looking at this kind of content. Yeah. Kids are exchanging it in the back of the bus. They are using Grok AI to nudify women and young children. OnlyFans and adult content creation is huge. Just the figures are huge. And so there is a direct harm to us societally. Yeah. And I think we've got to wise up to it because otherwise it only gets worse. When I've been watching this stuff for 30 years and seeing the change, the graphic nature of it, the violent nature of it over 30 years, for any business, they've got to grow. They've got to go somewhere. This world only gets worse until we intervene.
Yeah.
Pornhub had a visit. Had the online safety bill came in last year, and websites like that, obviously there has been an effect to that industry. But
didn't the sale of VPNs go up something
and
like
the VPNs? I mean,
Yeah.
that was another one of the dominoes that hit last year. This online safety bill came in. The online restrictions, under 18 restrictions, were implemented into websites, and I was like, oh no, I think this could be the worst thing, because I think that kind of intervention is a signal that they've done the job.
Oh yeah. I see what you mean.
I think it tells a lot of people.
It's like, see, we've done
they've looked after it. We don't need to talk about it.
My God,
we don't need to talk about immediately the VPN rates, and then so we could see that there was.
If you think about it, right? Drugs are as illegal as they've ever been, right? And they're probably more aware of people taking drugs now than they've ever been, right? And the drug deaths are higher than they've ever been.
Yeah,
this is not illegal.
Yeah,
this is not illegal. So this is an addiction that's in play, that's hidden away, but is out there for everybody to attend to.
Yeah,
so like it's shocking.
I think that is. Oh man, we just got to think about our kids.
When you think about being a kid, right, and you think of so you were first experiencing it at 9 years old. You first saw that. I mean, what did that experience feel like? Do you remember that moment? Yeah,
it just it felt like a complete shock to the system.
Yeah.
You're looking at something that you've never seen before. As a kid, you're looking to try and understand the world, what it looks like, and where you fit in it.
Yeah.
And this is something brand new, but it also plays on all of the intrigue and all the curiosity that you might have at that age around sex, other genders, whether that's something that you want, whether other people are doing it. And so, the intrigue kind of is allowed to it begins from there. It begins much too early.
Yeah.
To be exposed to that kind of content.
Yeah.
And with nowhere to go with it, a kid left to his own devices is going to look to further replicate that imagery.
Yeah.
And the feeling that it gives you.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't grow up with smartphones. And
now they have their own device.
Now they have their own device in their own hand with WhatsApp. Kids are finding out this stuff by accident. 60% of kids are finding this by accident.
Yeah, they get sent something.
They get sent it. They, an older sibling has it.
It's really important to say because we can all, as parents, right, you can go, well, my kids are good kids. They're not searching this stuff out, right? Whatever we think of that term, right? But it doesn't matter if your kid's a good kid. Most of the kids that see this, 60%, are not searching for this. They're getting served it in one way or another.
Yeah.
So whether you like it or not, your kids are probably going to come across this quite early on. They're going
to come across it.
Yeah.
It's just one of the harms that come as a side effect of living life through a digital lens.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the huge things, Matt, that we've got to understand, that when primarily we're looking at our lives and interacting with other human beings through devices, that there are harms that come to that, whether it is addiction or whether it is that, the lack of friction in relationships, because people are looking to create people are looking to create synthetic relationships with chatbots, or, even, don't get me started on dating apps. I was on a dating app for about 3 weeks before I went, this is the worst. Not to say that people can't, but I think in the last few years, from what I have inherited, what I've heard from friends, again, another addictive model. The swipe is another dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And I think doing that over time, you stop looking for the thing that you thought you were signing up to before.
Yeah.
You're looking just for the hit. And then again, you think you get that blurred reality, because anonymously you can hide behind a profile, you can hide behind a character, and then you can start hurling troll abuse to other people, likely to other women, on these platforms, and get away with it. There's no policing. There's no kind of, there's no intervention, and do that. And people are doing that. I mean, I think of the amount of girlfriends that have talked to me about, they're just terrified.
Yeah.
They are just terrified of men. And a lot of these platforms just harbors a lot of this activity. So, it is one of the greatest harms that I think come as looking at life through a digital lens like this. And I don't think we're fully appreciating that there's a cost.
We had a neuroscientist on the podcast called TJ Power.
Yes.
Who I love. And
yeah.
he's amazing. And
he's great.
And I've talked to him a couple of times, like off camera and different parts about porn. And I kind of just wanted to talk about him about to break it down into layman's terms for what happens in your brain. Right. So he made these for us. Thank you.
Wow.
Emma. Right. To kind of like just look at what happens where the difference between having sex and watching porn.
Yeah.
Right. With neuroscience. He kind of broke it down like this for us. So this is line saying dopamine, and this is the time, right? So this is the dopamine from low to high and time across here, right? So dopamine's a baseline, right? Having sex raises your dopamine and it comes back down slowly down to base level. When you have sex, your dopamine naturally rises above the baseline and then it gently returns to baseline, leaving you feeling satisfied and connected, right? Then this was quite a obvious difference.
Wow.
When you watch porn, your dopamine spikes rapidly above its baseline. This then creates a big crash causing low mood, right? So this would feed into feeling low, feeling bad, feeling shame, feeling remorse, feeling all those things. And that is exactly the same as a cocaine cycle. Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like when I think of like this is an ice bath. Right. So it kind of, you go in the ice bath, it raises your dopamine levels 4 times higher than normal and it stays at a sustained rate and then it slowly peters off. This is having a big line of coke, right? Makes massive high, you feel fucking awesome, but you go boom. So slowly but surely you would need just that big dose of cocaine to feel normal because the low would be lower and lower.
Yes.
And that would happen the same with porn. So it would just be feeling lower and lower and lower.
And so you need more
and more and more extreme and more intensity.
More graphic, more violent. And that's where that graph goes. So when people ask, what is the cost of an addiction? Or what is the cost of repeated exposure to this kind of material? It is existential. It's beyond the graph.
Yeah.
And I feel so fortunate that I was able to find a way out of it. I think this is why I feel so passionately about it. It's because I know what it feels like to be a good kid.
Yeah.
Exposed to something that they shouldn't have come across. Years of exposure and repeated patterns of behavior. World shrinking, a complete limitation to what they thought their life should look like. And I think if I didn't have incredible family, incredible friends, if I didn't have a job that I love, if there weren't those things and my incredible children, at the end of the day for me, I wanted to speak about this because I wanted to save my kids from a world that I had already fallen into. And for me, the thing that I know I will never return to it is because of my kids, because that was what was at stake. It was either losing my life or saving my life for the benefit of my children. And I don't think most people as it is will escape it.
Yeah.
Until we recognize that graph and what you haven't shown, what TJ hasn't shown there, is the consequence of letting this run through us societally.
I normally ask people, like, if you're out there struggling, what's one kind of message you would give to them? So if someone's in this, right, they feel shame about it, they don't know who to open up to, they don't know where to go for help, where would be the one person you would steer them to, or the one place that you would steer them to?
Man, do you know, I really do think the first step is that acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Because I think the first step to being addiction is recognizing that you have one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And realizing that you have reached a point in your life and it's not what you want it to be.
Yeah.
The life that you've chosen has got so distant away and this has kind of filled it. And it's so, there's a real turmoil in your life. And I think recognizing it is totally the first step. I mean, what helped me was the one conversation. You know, I went to my therapist thinking that this was something blasé, that I'm kind of beyond saving, but I'll mention it in case she's got something to add. And her reception, her lack of judgment, her understanding, and actually her lack of wanting to fix me was the first thing where I went, oh, maybe I'm not as broken and as ruined and as awful as I thought I was.
Yeah.
And that's going to create the beginning of the pathway to wanting to change, because, nobody's going to change until they come at a point at which they realize that they can and they want to. Not anybody else.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, is a rock bottom. And so that's the start. Can you find the person or the people or the organization, and things like Naked Truth Project, who I'm a patron of, are an incredible body that do work for people with sex addiction and porn addiction. I mean, even the fact it's called cognitive sexual behavioral disorder is ridiculous. It's recognized globally by the World Health Organization as 5% of the world are in this. And when it's, like I said, the sheer volume, like, we can't imagine that there isn't a serious problematic porn use as a global community, let alone in our own society. So I think that is the first thing. But it's a really brave thing to do. It's such a brave thing. But I think the life that you want to live is on the other side of it. It does take courage, and it seems blasé for folks like you and me to say it. But we were in it. We were in that trench, and I genuinely thought I would never get out of it. I thought that this was my life, that it was done. But everything that I knew was breaking down, and it came with this as the center of my life. This had been a thread through my entire life. From childhood well into adulthood, and trying to remove yourself from something that has been a crutch for your whole life, the thing that you've always gone to, the thing that has been a constant, the first relationship you've ever been in my case, that is, it seems impossible to strip it away from you, but you can.
If you're a parent out there and you're worried about this for your kids, what's the one piece of advice you would give to them?
I think it really is about speaking about what good, healthy, having a good, healthy relationship with sex, discussion, communication, openness, lack of judgment, teaching what sexual values look like. Doing that age appropriately, early and often, is the only way to create a foundation for what those kids believe and then what they inherit into adulthood. We've got to start doing that. Because with the way that they inherit life and look at life through the digital lens right now, when it comes to this kind of material, it is like rocket fuel. And if we haven't given them the steer, the guidance, the ability to go wrong and come back and figure out how to make those mistakes right, they're only going to fall into an abyss that is already there waiting to reel them in. And whilst it seems like catastrophic, and I think so much of what we talked about today feels like it's beyond hope. It feels like trying to take on big tech and trying to take on AI and trying to take on these algorithms is a hopeless task for a parent. What can you do? There's no script. They're on their phones all the time. There's a fight and a tussle between your kids to trying to get them off it. They're going to be out of your eyesight for longer than they're in it, and take it to their rooms. But the only thing that we can do, our responsibility, is to allow our kids the best possibility of making a good choice, whether it is crossing the road or how they use their phones. They're going to, at one point, be doing it on their own. And have we done enough together, as a community, with friends and with families, and we're rerouting this bad stuff? Are we seeing that kids are using it in a bad way? That's not the right way to do it. Here's the good, healthy, modeling what good conversation, good communication, and good sexual relationships look like. Because without it, this is going to be their script. And we can't let them do that.
On the mend, we do something called Music to Men By. So we think of, I know music's a big part of your life. And I wanted to get some songs off you that mean something to you. Okay, so I'm going to ask you for 4 different songs. Number 1 is one song that helped you through a tough time.
Okay, and this was blasting through my radio yesterday. Spotify knew I needed to hear it. But the Cassidy Jansen version of That's the Way It Is, the Celine Dion song, the first time I watched it, had me on the floor. It's a Celine Dion power ballad, but there was something about when I listened to it, and especially the lyric, and it is tattooed here. Don't give up on your faith. Love comes to those who believe it.
Great. Solid.
And even now, thinking about when I heard that at the time, I think a lot of what I have come to at this point in my life is because I returned to my faith and my Christianity. Every door that I thought was open to me shut. And the only door that was open was my faith, and it saved me. And so that, with that song and Cassidy Jansen's vocal, shout out to Cass. That was something special.
Next one is one song that meant something to you as a child.
We lost my sister last year to suicide. This is like every time I go to my tattooist, she's like, can you not think of every tattoo has to mean something really deep and really important to you? But I'm like, I'm sorry, hon, I can't live my life anywhere other than in its very depths. Yeah. And, a year later, we've, lived through a really tragic chapter in our lives. But the way I look at my sister and the legacy of my sister is gratitude for the life. And so I'm able to look at it despite the incredible sadness and the tragedy of it. I am grateful that my sister gave us 37 years. And one of the songs that was a huge thing for our childhood, and it was one that we had played at my sister's celebration of life, was Kiss from a Rose by Seal. And, whether it's signs from my sister or just if I want to just connect with them, whenever that song comes on now, like it felt like a trip down nostalgia lane to when I was 11, 12 already. And to that feeling of like childhood in the 90s. My goodness, do we all want to return to that right now? Yeah. But now obviously it has an extra special meaning because it brings me even closer to my sis.
One song that means something to you now.
George Michael, father figure.
Yes.
Oh man, I've done well not crying yet. George Michael is who inspired this, by the way.
Loving it. It's very George Michael.
That's my George Michael nod.
Nice.
I just, oh man, it's the reason. It is the reason that I do anything is for my kids, and wanting to create the path for them to be the people that they want to be.
And last one. One song that you'll still be listening to in 20 years' time.
So, oh man, and actually, do you know what? Because there are so many I could pick. Yeah. But because, like I said, the meaning that is attached to all of these, it's like every tattoo that I've ever put on my body. And what came to mind was in 20 years' time, my daughter will be 24. And isn't that excruciating?
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
When you do that. Who knows if she'll want to get married? But I remember when she was born, the first song that came on the radio was by Blue. If you come back in my life, baby, till the end of time. That was the first song that I listened to when my daughter was born. And I thought, if she ever wants to get married, I think that's the song I would ask if she would want to be walked down the aisle to.
Oh, nice. Great. Wicked. That would be fucking rad. Cool.
So that will always be special. Will those do?
They're perfect, mate. They're amazing. Ore, thank you so much. I've loved chatting to you. I could chat to you for 3 more hours.
Oh, mate.
But we have to finish. It's been an absolute joy. I'd love to have you back on at some point to chat about this more.
Let's continue.
I feel like we've barely touched the surface. And,
can we do that, team?
Would that be okay?
Can we do that?
That'd be all right.
I'd love that.
to. I've never said that to a guest before, but I really do feel that I could sit here and talk to you for hours. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, mate, that means it means a lot. And I will. Oh man, I will just say this: that thank you and this team, because addiction is the hardest thing to get out of. It's something that grips so many people in ways that they don't even understand.
Yeah.
And I think if we don't understand that people are really struggling every day and can normalizing these conversations, and not letting these things exist under the rug and watching all of those negative consequences take place, then they just continue to happen. And the world is a freaking scary place, man. And I see so much toxicity. And I think the remedy to all of that hatred and toxicity is kindness, and it is love, and it is compassion. And by creating spaces like this, social media is a mob. It's so toxic, and it's fueled on that hatred. It's where the algorithm gets off, is from all of the division and the hatred and the vitriol. And even if you're on the good side, you've got to kind of out the people that aren't joining. There's like, if you're not with us, you're against us kind of argument. It's a real hate-fueled space. That's never going to solve people's issues. But spaces like this, where people can really talk about the stuff that is problematic, give them the space to be compassionate, kindness, understand how people are navigating the world, and in many cases in a difficult sense. That's how we get over so many of the issues that we have, let alone in the internal battle that addiction is. So thank you, man. I'm so grateful.
Like always, if you or someone you know is struggling, we're going to list some very, very trusted resources in the show comments. Please get in touch. This is a subject which really, really resonates with me. Like I feel very strongly about this subject, and I kind of want to explore it more and more and more. So hopefully I will come back on and we'll have more chats. But I thank you for listening. All the best. Lots of love. If you're still with us after that episode, you might as well follow the podcast. Hit follow. We'll see you next time.